Tonight we travel into one of the most beautiful and enduring places in Irish myth. It is a land known as Tir na nOg, the land of eternal youth, a place beyond age, beyond decay, beyond the long and ordinary weather of human sorrow. In the old Irish imagination, Tir na nOg was not simply a kingdom on a map, nor a city that could be reached by road. It belonged to another order of reality, one that seemed to exist close beside the visible world, and yet remained hidden from it. It was a place of brightness and abundance, of music and ease, of youth that did not fade and beauty that did not pass away. For centuries its name has lingered in the mind like a distant shore glimpsed through sea mist. Tonight, we will move slowly toward it. We will begin with the Irish imagination that gave rise to such a place. We will look at the old idea of the other world and the strange nearness of hidden realms in Celtic tradition. We will follow the story of Oisin, the poet-warrior who left the mortal world behind, and Niamh, the radiant woman who came to lead him westward. And we will consider why the dream of Tir na nOg, the dream of a land where time loosens its grip, still seems to speak to something deep and ancient in the human heart. So let the room grow quiet around you, let the day recede, and let us begin where so many Irish stories begin, with a landscape half veiled by memory, where sea, mist, and myth were never entirely separate. Chapter 1: A Land Beyond Age. Tir na nOg means, in the simplest translation, the land of youth. But the meaning of the place reaches further than that. It is not merely a country where people remain young in appearance, as if preserved like statues in a golden light. It is a land where age itself seems to lose authority. Time does not gather in the body there as it does in the mortal world. Seasons do not press so heavily. Loss does not shape the days in quite the same way. Life does not appear to bend toward decline. To imagine such a place is already to understand something essential about myth. Myth does not endure because it offers information. It endures because it gives form to longing, and Tir na nOg gives form to one of the oldest longings of all, the longing that there might be somewhere just beyond the reach of ordinary life, a place where youth is not so fragile, where beauty is not always vanishing, where love is not always followed by parting, where the body does not have to carry the quiet burden of time. In many traditions, there are stories of hidden paradises, fortunate islands, sacred gardens, or distant realms where the rules of mortal existence seem softened. But Tir na nOg has a particular character. It is not only a paradise of abundance, it is a paradise of preservation. Not frozen in the cold sense, but suspended in vitality. That is what makes it feel both beautiful and slightly mournful, because to imagine a place beyond age is to admit that age, in the ordinary world, reaches all things, and to imagine a land beyond sorrow is to confess how deeply sorrow is woven into human life. So even before we enter the story proper, Tir na nOg already carries a double feeling. Wonder, certainly, but also tenderness, and perhaps a little grief. In the old tales, Tir na nOg belongs to the Irish Otherworld, a realm not wholly separate from the visible landscape, but interwoven with it in subtle and mysterious ways. It is often reached by sea or by invitation, or by crossing a threshold that is not obvious until the moment it opens. It may lie across the western waters, it may rise out of mist, it may be glimpsed only by those whom the otherworld itself has chosen. This is important. Tir na nOg is not conquered, It is not discovered by force, it is not charted by ambition, it is entered through permission, through invitation, through crossing. And that tells us something about the spirit of the tale. This is not a myth of conquest, it is a myth of passage, a movement from one condition of being into another, a departure from the visible world of labour, conflict, loyalty, ageing and history, into a place where such burdens seem to fall away. The old Irish storytellers did not imagine the world as empty, flat and fully known. They imagined it as layered. The seen world and the unseen world were near each other. The everyday and the enchanted were not separated by absolute walls. A hill might conceal a hidden dwelling. A sea crossing might become something more than a journey. A beautiful stranger might arrive from a place beyond ordinary geography. In such a world, Tir na nOg feels natural, not ordinary, but natural to the mythic imagination, a land beyond age, a place beyond the reach of decay. It is tempting, from a modern point of view, to ask whether Tir na nOg was meant as a heaven, or a symbolic afterlife, or a poetic fantasy of immortality. But old myths do not always submit neatly to modern categories. Tir na nOg is not merely one thing. It is a place, a state, a promise, and a distance. It is part of a larger family of Irish otherworld realms, and yet it stands out because of the clarity of its emotional centre. Youth, beauty, endurance, and the strange sorrow hidden inside all three. Because there is another truth in these stories. A land beyond age is beautiful to imagine. But what happens when a mortal enters it? What happens when someone shaped by time tries to live outside time? The answer to that question lies at the heart of the legend. But before we reach Oisin and before Niamh comes riding from the otherworld, we need to understand the world that imagined such a place. We need to linger in ancient Ireland, in a landscape where sea cliffs, green hills, burial mounds, and western horizons could all become thresholds between worlds. To understand Tir na nOg, we must first understand the Irish mythic imagination itself. Chapter 2: The Irish Mythic Imagination. The old Irish world was a world alive with nearness. Not just nearness of tribe to tribe or kingdom to kingdom, but nearness between realms. The visible world was not sealed shut. It was porous, and in the tradition that later came down through medieval manuscripts, oral tales and layered retellings, there are repeated suggestions that another order of being exists close beside ordinary human life. This is often called the otherworld, but even that phrase can be misleading if it sounds too abstract or too far away. The Irish otherworld is often not imagined as a remote cosmic heaven. It is encountered through landscape, through mounds, through islands, through lakes, through the sea to the west, through a sudden meeting in the open air, through music heard where no musician can be seen. It is a world adjacent to this one, a hidden brightness near the edge of sight. This quality gives Irish myth much of its particular atmosphere. The marvellous is not always in the sky. It is under the hill, over the water, inside the mist, beyond the next ridge, hidden in a place that seems familiar until, suddenly, it does not. In later Irish tradition, the Sidhe, often linked with ancient mound dwellers and supernatural beings, inhabit this partially hidden world. These beings are not always simple fairies in the softened modern sense. They belong to an older and stranger imaginative order. They are associated with ancient presences, with beauty, peril, seduction, music, and time that does not flow, like human time. The Otherworld, then, is not simply a place of reward or punishment. It is a realm of different conditions. Beauty there can be overwhelming, hospitality can be perfect, music can enchant, time can distort. A mortal who enters may return altered, or not return at all. That pattern appears again and again: threshold, invitation, crossing, transformation. In this sense, Tir na nOg belongs to a larger Irish way of imagining the marvellous. It is not an isolated fantasy invented for a single tale. It is part of a worldview in which the world is full of hidden depth. Ancient Ireland, like many old societies, understood landscape not merely as physical environment, but as meaningful terrain. Hills could be storied, rivers could remember, coastlines could suggest departure into the unknown. Mists could hide more than weather. The Western Sea in particular carried enormous imaginative power. The west was the direction of the setting sun, the edge of visible day, the horizon beyond which other islands, other worlds, or other states of being might lie. And so many Irish journeys of wonder move westward, across water, toward islands of beauty, toward lands that seem both real and impossible. This matters for Tir na nOg, because the land of eternal youth is not imagined in total abstraction. It belongs to the sea road of myth. It is reached by crossing, by leaving behind the settled weight of the mortal world. There is something deeply fitting in that. Water has long served in myth as a boundary between conditions of being. A river may divide the living from the dead. A lake may conceal a supernatural dwelling. A sea may separate the ordinary world from a fortunate island where time behaves differently. To cross water is to leave behind more than one shore. It is to pass from one order into another. The Irish tradition understands this with unusual delicacy. It does not always explain, it suggests. A woman appears, a rider comes from nowhere, a song is heard, a mist forms. A place once familiar seems changed. That is how worlds touch, not through argument but through opening. In the Irish mythic imagination, the greatest mysteries do not announce themselves with thunder. They often arrive quietly, beautifully, almost gently, and that gentleness is what makes them powerful. Tir na nOg also belongs to a tradition in which beauty itself is not merely decorative. Beauty can be a sign of supernatural order. A radiant figure, a shining plane, a silver branch, a feast that does not diminish, a horse of impossible brightness. These are not just lovely details. They are signals that one has approached a realm where ordinary conditions have been suspended. At the same time, Irish myth rarely allows beauty to remain simple. Beauty often carries danger or distance or the ache of impermanence. A beautiful woman may belong to another world. A beautiful land may not allow mortal belonging. A beautiful invitation may come with hidden cost. This complexity gives the myths their emotional depth. They are not naive fantasies of endless pleasure. They know that longing itself has consequences, and nowhere is that more evident than in the legend of Oisin and Niamh. But before they meet, it is worth pausing over one final feature of the Irish imagination: its relationship to time. In many Irish tales, the Otherworld is not only another place, it is another rhythm. Time may move differently there. A stay that feels brief may equal years in the mortal world. A mortal may leave and return to find generations gone. This is one of the oldest and most haunting ideas in world mythology, that the enchanted realm offers beauty and release, but at the cost of continuity with ordinary human life. Tir na nOg is not only beyond age, it is beyond ordinary time, and that means it is also beyond return, at least in the simple sense. A person may go there, a person may dwell there, but to leave it, or to try to carry it back into the mortal world, is another matter entirely. This is where the legend becomes something more than a charming paradise tale. It becomes a meditation on youth, memory, home, and the irrevocability of time. And for that, we need Oisin. We need the heroic world from which he came. We need the mortal life that made Tir na nOg so alluring in the first place. Chapter 3. The World of the Fianna. Before Oisin crossed into the land of eternal youth, he belonged to another great landscape of Irish tradition, the world of the Fianna. In Irish legend, the Fianna are often remembered as a band of warrior hunters moving through forests, hills, and wild places, bound by loyalty, courage, skill, and the old heroic code. Their stories belong to a world that is already half legendary even within the tradition itself. A world of feasting halls and hunts, of poetry and battle, of kinship and fame, of youth tested in the open land. At the centre of many of these tales stands Fionn mac Cumhail, one of the great heroic figures of Irish myth, and Oisin is his son. That matters, because Oisin does not begin as an isolated dreamer or passive wanderer. He belongs to a lineage of action, memory, and song. In many traditions, he is not only a warrior but a poet, and that combination is important. He is already a figure standing between worlds in some sense, the world of heroic deed and the world of reflective speech. He lives in time, he belongs to a father, a people, a landscape, a band of companions, a known rhythm of seasons and loyalty. This makes his later journey much more powerful. A paradise only matters if one has something to leave behind, and Oisin does. The world of the Fianna is not paradise. It is mortal, vigorous, beautiful, and unstable. It is a world where youth shines brightly because it will not last forever, where fame matters because death is real, where companionship matters because separation will come, where songs are sung because memory must struggle against forgetting. Compared with Tir na nOg, the world of the Fianna is heavy with time. That is not a criticism, it is simply what makes it human. Heroes, eh? Fathers die, great bands dissolve, even the noblest age passes. The old tales are often keenly aware of this. Heroic worlds can feel splendid, but they are already fragile, already fading by the time they are remembered. To tell stories of the Fianna is, in part, to remember a vanished age of strength and movement, already receding into the distance. So when Niamh appears, she does not interrupt a static life. She interrupts a mortal life shaped by beauty and impermanence. She appears to someone who knows loyalty, land, and fame, but who also stands within the reach of loss. That is why her arrival has such force. Because what she offers is not merely romance, she offers another condition of being, an escape not from boredom, but from time. It is worth imagining Oisin before that moment, a poet-warrior in the Irish landscape, the open air around him, the company of the Fianna, the old heroic world intact or seemingly so, the earth underfoot still carrying the memory of his father's fame, the future unwritten but mortal, and then into this world comes someone from beyond it. This pattern appears often in myth. The ordinary order of life is not overthrown by violence. It is opened by encounter. One beautiful presence is enough to tilt the world. In the case of Tir na nOg, that presence is Niamh, and her arrival is one of the most luminous scenes in Irish legend. Chapter 4. Niamh appears. Niamh is often remembered as Niamh of the golden hair. Even the name, even the epithet carries brightness with it. She does not emerge from the story as a figure of threat. She arrives in radiance, beauty, and invitation. In the old imagination, she is a woman of the otherworld, a being whose appearance itself signals that the boundary between realms has opened. Different tellings give the scene different shades, but the essential shape remains the same. Oisin is in the mortal world. Then Niamh appears, and with her, a new horizon. We can imagine the moment the way myth wants us to imagine it, not cluttered with unnecessary detail, but vivid where it matters. A rider emerging where none should be, a horse of unusual whiteness, a woman whose beauty is not merely physical but atmospheric, a brightness around her, a composure, a sense that she belongs to another condition of existence entirely. She is not rushed, she is not confused, she has come for a reason, and the reason is Oisin. In many retellings, Niamh has heard of him, or loves him, or has chosen him, and she offers him the chance to come with her to Tir na nOg. This offer is crucial. The otherworld does not seize him. It invites. That invitation is one of the most haunting elements in the tale. To be invited away from the mortal world by beauty itself. To be asked to leave behind the ordinary order of life and enter a land where youth endures. To be told that beyond the known hills, beyond the sea, beyond the old burdens of human life, there is a place where the body does not fail and joy does not wither. There is no need for exaggeration here. The scene is already powerful. And what makes it stronger is that Oisin is not a man with nothing to lose. He belongs to a father, a people, a heroic order. He is not simply being offered pleasure, he is being offered departure. This is why the legend holds so much emotional tension. It is easy, in the abstract, to dream of eternal youth. It is harder when one must leave behind the living fabric of one's own world. And yet the invitation is irresistible, because Niamh is not presenting Tir na nOg as a theory. She is embodying it. She comes from the place she describes. Her presence is proof, or something close enough to proof to overcome hesitation. She is the visible sign of an invisible land. There is something deeply human in this structure. The unknown becomes real when it arrives in beautiful form. A promise becomes believable when it comes embodied, and Niamh is one of the great embodied promises in myth. She offers love, yes, but also crossing. She offers a life not governed by decline. In sleepier, more superficial retellings, this scene can become only romantic, but that reduces its depth. The legend is doing something larger. Niamh is not just the beautiful woman from another world. She is the summons away from mortality's ordinary rhythm. That is why the horse matters as well. In Irish myth, as in many traditions, horses often carry significance beyond simple transport. They move between places, between statuses, between conditions. The white horse in particular becomes a fitting vehicle for passage. pure, unreal, almost luminous against the mortal landscape. To mount that horse behind Niamh is not merely to ride away, it is to consent to crossing, and Oisin does. One can imagine the last look backward, the mortal world still visible, the known land, the world of his father and companions still standing behind him, the irreversible quality of the choice perhaps not fully understood but already present. Then the movement begins, toward the sea, toward the horizon, toward Tir na nOg. And this crossing, quiet as it may seem, is the true hinge of the tale. Because once the mortal world has been left behind, time will no longer behave as before. Chapter 5. Crossing into Tir na nOg. The journey to Tir na nOg is not described as one more ordinary voyage across the sea. It is a passage between conditions. The sea in these stories is not just water. It is boundary, medium, veil. To move across it is to travel not only through space, but through possibility. In some tellings, Oisin rides with Niamh across the waves. In others, the movement feels almost dreamlike, as though the ordinary world recedes without struggle, and another brightness begins to gather ahead. Either way, the sea serves its old mythic purpose. It marks the leaving behind of one order and the approach to another. This is why the image has endured. A rider crossing westward over a water toward a hidden land. The symbolism is old, but it does not feel stale. Perhaps because it expresses something almost everyone understands without needing it explained. There are moments in life when one feels poised between what is known and what is not yet known, between oneself and another, between one order of time and another. Myths give those moments shape. In this tale, the crossing is graceful. There is no storm, no battle with monsters, no heroic trial in the usual sense. That absence matters. This is not a quest that demands violence. It is a transition carried by invitation and willingness. The sea does not rage. The land beyond does not resist. The movement is closer to enchantment than to conquest. As Oisin travels with Niamh, the mortal world recedes. This is one of the deepest patterns in Otherworld tales. The farther one moves into the enchanted realm, the less the old world retains its practical hold. The old bonds do not vanish morally, but they lose immediacy. What once felt central becomes distant. The new realm surrounds the traveller. New beauty takes the senses. New rhythms replace the old. The crossing is therefore not only external, it is inward, a loosening from the mortal timetable, a softening of history's grip. The sea makes this possible because it is already, in so many traditions, a place where certainty thins. Horizons over water are always suggestive, they conceal more than they reveal. One can stare westward and imagine islands, kingdoms, vanished lands, fortunate shores. The Irish imagination made splendid use of that fact. Beyond the visible edge of things, beyond the coast, there could always be another order of life. And then, at last, Tir na nOg comes into view. How should we imagine it? Not as a cluttered fantasy illustration, not as a loud spectacle. Its beauty is more persuasive than that. It is radiant, perhaps, green and gold, open, alive. A land where no sign of exhaustion seems present. A country in which movement remains graceful, the body remains young, and the atmosphere itself seems touched by perpetual freshness. There may be halls, meadows, music, shining trees, clear waters, or distant plains. But whatever the details, the central impression is the same. This is a land in which decline does not seem to have entered. That is the true wonder, not wealth, not jewels, not even immortality in the grandiose sense, but unwithering vitality. The crossing is complete when Oisin ceases to think of Tir na nOg as merely a destination and begins to dwell within its conditions. He is no longer looking at a distant promise, he is inside it, and that is where the tale becomes even more subtle. Because paradise in myth is never only about arrival, it is about what happens when one lives there. What does youth mean if it does not end? What does joy mean if it is no longer threatened by loss? What does time become when it no longer presses? These are not modern philosophical questions imposed from outside. They are already present in the logic of the story. Tir na nOg is beautiful because it suspends the ordinary wound of time. But a human being shaped by memory and mortality cannot enter such a land without carrying something of the old world within. That is why even in paradise another emotion will eventually awaken. Memory, and with memory longing. But before that turning comes, we should remain a while longer in the land of eternal youth itself. We should let it breathe around us. We should dwell there as Oisin dwelt there. Chapter 6. Life in the Land of Eternal Youth. In Tir na nOg, life unfolds without the ordinary marks of erosion. This is the central fact, and everything else follows from it. No bent backs, no dimming of the eyes, no slow surrender of strength, no gathering fatigue that warns the body of what is coming. In the mortal world, even joy carries an undertone of vanishing. A summer afternoon is beautiful partly because it will end. A face is lovely partly because age will change it. A season is dear because it passes. But Tir na nOg seems to stand outside that structure. Its beauty is not sharpened by decay because decay is absent. That is what makes the place so difficult to imagine fully. We are used to beauty that fades. Permanent beauty belongs more naturally to dream than to experience. And yet the tale insists on it. Tir na nOg is a place of abundance, ease and lasting youth. It is a realm where one may ride, feast, speak, sing and love, without the ordinary pressure of time closing around every pleasure. In some tellings there are bright plains, noble halls, games, music, companionship, and all the rich signs of a life at once active and untroubled. This is important. Tir na nOg is not a still museum of perfection. It is alive. It is joyous. Youth there is not rigid. It is flowing, social, vibrant. The place has movement without exhaustion. That gives it a specifically Irish kind of charm. This is not merely a static heaven of contemplation. It is a land where vitality continues. One can imagine horses, laughter, wind over grass, light on water, music carried through open halls, beauty in motion. There is also something generous about the place. It is not paradise in the severe, moralized sense. It does not seem built to judge. It seems built to sustain delight. Yet even here, the story contains the seed of sadness. Because a mortal may enjoy such a place, but a mortal is still shaped by having once lived in time. Memory does not vanish simply because aging does. At first, Oisin lives in Tir na nOg in happiness. The beauty of the place is enough. Niamh is enough. The land is enough. Perhaps the old world recedes gently like a shoreline slipping beneath mist. Such forgetting is natural in myths of enchantment. The new order surrounds the traveller so fully that the old order weakens. And yet the human heart does not remain permanently severed from what formed it. A father, companions, homeland, the remembered sound of one's own world. These things return, and that perhaps is the deepest truth hidden in paradise stories. Even the most perfect realm cannot entirely erase the shape of mortal belonging. For a while Tir na nOg may seem enough, more than enough. But eventually Oisin remembers Ireland, not only as a place but as a lost pattern of life. The Fianna, his father, the mortal hills, the old names, the heroic world from which he came. The legend becomes sharper and sadder, because longing begins to divide him. He has entered paradise, but paradise has not erased home. This is one reason the tale endures so strongly. It understands that human desire is not simple. We want relief from time, yes. We want beauty that does not vanish. We want youth. We want release from decline. But we also want continuity. We want memory. We want the world that made us. To choose one fully may mean to lose the other. That is the hidden tragedy already waiting within the joy of Tir na nOg. The more perfectly the land preserves youth, the more impossible it becomes to reconcile with mortal life. One can dwell there, but one cannot easily move between the two worlds as if nothing has changed. And Niamh, being of the other world, understands this better than Oisin does. When the desire to return begins to grow in him, she knows what danger lies there. Because time has not ceased in Ireland, it has only ceased for him. What seems to Oisin like a stay measured perhaps in seasons, or in a humanly graspable span, is not the same in the mortal world. The old Irish imagination understands this with exquisite sadness. Time in the enchanted realm and time in the human world do not run together. They diverge, and so the longer Oisin remains in Tir na nOg, the more terrible the return may become. But longing for home, once awakened, is difficult to silence. Even paradise cannot completely overcome it. And so the story turns from delight to memory, from memory to homesickness, from homesickness to the fatal desire to go back. Chapter 7. The Return of Oisin. When Oisin asks to return to Ireland, the legend reaches its most delicate and devastating movement. He does not ask to abandon Tir na nOg in contempt. He asks because the memory of home has become too strong to ignore. This makes the choice noble and tragic at once. He is not rejecting paradise. He is responding to attachment, to father, people, landscape, and the moral pull of what once formed his life. Niamh warns him. That warning is essential. She knows what he only partly knows, that the mortal world has moved on without him. The time he has spent in Tir na nOg does not correspond to mortal time in the ordinary way. What feels to him like a bounded absence may already stretch across generations in Ireland. Still, she allows him to go, and with that permission comes a condition. He must not touch the ground of Ireland. In many retellings, Niamh gives him the white horse again and instructs him clearly. He may return, he may look, he may search, but he must not dismount, and he must not let his feet touch the earth. The condition feels like myth at its purest. Simple, exact, heavy with invisible meaning. Why must he not touch the ground? Because to touch the earth is to re-enter the mortal order fully, to submit again to the world of time, weight, decay, and succession. The horse, like the original crossing, preserves a tenuous connection to the other world. It keeps him suspended between conditions, but the ground of Ireland belongs to time, and time is waiting. So Oisin rides back. This return scene is among the most haunting in myth because it stages one of the oldest human fears, not merely that the world will change, but that it will change beyond recognition while one is away. He arrives in Ireland expecting perhaps some continuity, some trace of the old heroic world, perhaps the Fianna diminished, perhaps his father aged, but still in some form present. Instead, he finds a changed land. The old companions are gone. The great heroic age has passed into story. The strength, noise, and immediacy of the Fianna no longer fill the world. He is a man returning to a place that has become historical while he has remained untouched. There is something unbearable in this. Not simply the loss of friends, but the loss of shared time. He has not aged with them. He has not suffered the years they suffered. He has not watched the world gradually change. He arrives all at once into aftermath, and that is a kind of exile more profound than physical separation. To lose one's world slowly is painful. To lose it all at once is shattering. In some versions, Oisin encounters ordinary people engaged in some labour, unable to lift a stone or burden that he, still strong with otherworld youth, believes he can assist with. He leans down from the horse to help, but in doing so the saddle girth breaks, or he slips, or he is drawn too near the earth. And then the fatal contact happens. He touches the ground. At once the full weight of mortal time descends upon him. The years he escaped do not vanish, they return altogether. This is one of the most unforgettable images in Irish tradition, not because it is gruesome in a loud sense, but because it is so complete in its sadness. The body that had remained young in nOg now receives in an instant all the age from which it had been suspended. Oisin becomes old, bent, withered by centuries that had not disappeared, but only waited. Time had not been defeated, it had been deferred, and once the bond with the otherworld broke, deferment ended. The tragedy here is deeper than magical punishment. Oisin is not guilty in any petty sense. He is caught between two legitimate loves, the beauty of nOg and the memory of Ireland. He cannot belong fully to both. To return to one is to lose the terms of the other. That is why the legend has such emotional dignity. It is not a crude warning against curiosity. It is a meditation on irreversibility, on the fact that some crossings change us so completely that there can be no simple return, on the truth that the worlds we leave behind do not stand still while we are gone, and on the most difficult truth of all, even paradise cannot undo the cost of being human. In some Christianized later tellings, Oisin survives into an age where he speaks with St. Patrick, carrying memory from the heroic pagan past into a new religious era. That adds another layer of poignancy, the sense that Oisin becomes a witness not only to personal loss but to civilizational change. Whether or not one emphasizes that part, the essential emotional shape remains the same. He has seen a land beyond age. He has returned to a world ruled by time, and he can no longer live wholly in either. This is the sorrow at the heart of nOg, not merely that paradise is distant, but that paradise and home may not be reconcilable. Chapter 8. Time, Loss, and the Meaning of the Legend. What does nOg mean? The question should be asked gently. Myths are not machines that produce one clean answer. They are layered forms of thought. They carry story, atmosphere, value, memory, and emotional truth all at once. To reduce them too quickly is to flatten them. Still, the legend of Tir na nOg invites reflection. Why does a story of eternal youth remain so moving? Perhaps because it speaks directly to a tension that is nearly universal. Human beings long for what does not fade, and yet human life is shaped by fading. We want youth, but youth passes. We want beauty, but beauty changes. We want love, but love moves within time. We want home, but home is never fully preserved. Even if the place remains, those who made it what it was do not remain unchanged forever. Tir na nOg gives form to the desire that something might escape this condition, that somewhere there might exist a mode of life not governed by erosion. And Oisin's story gives form to the answer. Yes, perhaps such a place can be imagined, perhaps such a place can even be entered in story. But a mortal cannot simply possess it without cost. To leave time behind is also to leave behind the mortal sequence of shared life. One may keep youth, but lose continuity. One may gain timelessness, but lose one's age, one's generation, one's common world. This is why the legend is so much sadder than a simple paradise tale. It is not only about eternal youth, it is about incompatibility. The incompatibility between timeless bliss and mortal belonging. Oisin does not merely lose Tir na nOg, he also loses Ireland in the sense that he cannot re-enter the old heroic Ireland he remembers. He returns too late. The world he loved has passed into history, just as he himself has passed into legend. He stands between worlds, and that is perhaps the deepest meaning of his figure. He becomes the witness to a truth human beings know in many forms, that one cannot step twice into the same world unchanged. That memory preserves but does not restore. That longing reaches backward toward what cannot be recovered and outward toward what cannot be fully kept. The legend also suggests something about the nature of beauty itself. Beauty in the mortal world is painful partly because it is passing, but beauty without passing, the tale seems to whisper, may not solve everything. It may remove one wound only to create another, because the mortal heart does not want only endless youth. It also wants relation, memory, home, and a place in time. To live entirely outside time might mean living outside part of what makes human life meaningful. This is not an argument against the dream of Tir na nOg. It is what gives the dream its depth. The tale understands both sides. It lets paradise shine. It does not mock the longing for it, but it also lets tragedy emerge from the meeting of paradise and mortality. In that sense, Tir na nOg belongs to the great family of myths that do not simply flatter desire. They refine it. They reveal its structure. They show that what we long for is often double. We want permanence, and we want belonging. We want escape from sorrow, and we want the world made meaningful by memory. We want youth, and we want the love that comes from having lived. No simple realm can resolve all of these at once. That is why Tir na nOg remains powerful. It is not sentimental. It is beautiful, yes, but its beauty is framed by impossibility. And impossibility in myth often deepens truth rather than weakening it. The tale also resonates because it links the problem of time to landscape. This is one of the genius features of Irish myth. Time is not discussed abstractly. It is crossed by sea. It is hidden in islands. It lies behind mist. It waits in the ground beneath one's feet. The difference between mortal and otherworld time becomes something tangible, felt through horse, horizon, island and earth. That concreteness gives the legend its durability. It can be remembered in images: a radiant woman on a white horse, a bright land beyond the western sea, a warning not to touch the ground, an old world gone, a body suddenly claimed by centuries. These images stay, and because they stay, the legend stays. Even now, long after the old storytellers first shaped it, Tir na nOg still feels close enough to imagine and distant enough to desire. Chapter 9: Why Tir na nOg Still Endures. There are many paradise myths in the world. Hidden valleys, sacred islands, gardens of first innocence, cities of gold, lands beyond death. And yet Tir na nOg has a particular tenderness, perhaps because it is not only a paradise of wealth or power, it is a paradise of youth and gentle endurance, a place where life remains bright, a place where the body does not become a burden, a place where the beloved is not lost to age, a place where delight does not curdle so quickly into regret. It also endures because of the Irish landscape that surrounds it in the imagination. The western sea, the green land, the ancient mounds, the feeling that a mist may open and reveal another shore. Ireland has always invited myth through its geography, its coasts and weather, its hidden hollows and old stones, its shifting light over hills and water, all lend themselves to the sense that another world might be near. Tir na nOg belongs to that sense of nearness. It does not feel like an abstract celestial doctrine. It feels like a place one might almost glimpse. And that near unreachability is powerful. If Tir na nOg were fully available, it would lose its radiance. Its distance is part of its beauty. It remains just beyond possession. The mind can move toward it, but not secure it. That is true of many of the things human beings love most. Youth itself, perhaps. Memory, the ideal form of home, the hour before loss, the untouched version of a world that time will later alter. Tir na nOg gathers all these into one image and one name, the land of eternal youth. Even the name is gentle, not the land of conquest, not the land of final judgment, not the land of endless dominion, but youth. That alone tells us much about the spirit of the myth. It is not built around mastery, it is built around vitality, freshness, and the wish that what is lovely might remain lovely. And yet the tale is wise enough to let that wish remain unresolved. That may be why it still feels mature, even after centuries. It does not pretend that all longings can be satisfied without contradiction. It lets the contradiction stand. Oisin loves Tir na nOg. Oisin loves Ireland. He cannot keep both. The old world passes. The enchanted world recedes. What remains is memory. And memory in myth is often enough to keep a place alive. Perhaps that is what Tir na nOg ultimately becomes for us. Not a literal destination, not a doctrine, but a remembered possibility, a way of naming the hope that somewhere beyond the visible sequence of aging, labour and loss, there is still brightness, even if it cannot be possessed, even if it can only be approached through story. And story is not a small thing. Stories have carried lands longer than maps have. They have preserved desires, fears, images, and names through centuries of change. Tir na nOg survives because it was carried in words. in telling and retelling, in memory, in longing. It survives because human beings continue to understand without needing it explained too harshly the ache that gave rise to it, the ache for the unwithering, the ache for the beloved not lost, the ache for beauty that remains, the ache for a shore beyond the weather of time. Tonight, as this old Irish land begins to recede once more into distance, perhaps it is best not to force a final conclusion upon it. Let Tir na nOg remain partly veiled. Let it stay out over the western waters where myth leaves it. A place of brightness, a place of youth, a place glimpsed by the imagination when the world grows quiet enough to remember what it longs for. And if Oisin still rides there in memory, if Niamh still appears radiant on the white horse, if the land still shines somewhere beyond the ordinary horizon, then perhaps the legend has done what legends do best. Not prove, not argue, but preserve. Preserve a human wish in beautiful form, a wish older than Ireland, and yet unmistakably shaped by Ireland's own voice, the wish that time might loosen its grip, the wish that beauty might endure, the wish that somewhere beyond sorrow and beyond decay there remains a country where youth is not yet wounded by the years. And now, as our journey comes to rest, let the western sea grow quiet, let the shore fade gently into mist, let the bright land withdraw into its proper distance, far beyond the ordinary roads of the world, beyond the green hills and the old stone mounds, beyond the line where sea and sky become one. The Irish imagination once placed a country of youth and light. Whether it was meant as memory, dream, promise, or all three at once, it has remained because it speaks to something that does not easily vanish. The desire not to lose all beauty to time, the desire not to watch all things fade, the desire to believe that somewhere just beyond reach there is a place where what is most lovely does not pass away so quickly. So let the name remain with you, quietly. Tir na nOg, the land of eternal youth. Not as a puzzle to be solved too firmly, not as a doctrine to be pinned down, but as a distant island of the mind, a western brightness, a hidden shore, a place where time loosens, a place where memory and longing meet. And now the sea is dim, the horse is far away, the old stories are settling back into silence. Rest now, let the land grow smaller in the mist, let the waves darken softly, let the western light fade, and let Tir na nOg drift gently beyond the horizon.